Okay, so a friend sent me this a few days ago. He's an artist and he sees this sort of stuff all the time. It's a Billboard campaign, and it's a Billboard campaign that originated on an Instagram page called The White Pube. They have 70,000 followers. They write about art, games, and food, and they're also reader supported on Patreon, which basically means people actually pay them to continue writing and making posts. So they're doing pretty well off of Instagram. Now, the Billboard campaign that I'm talking about is this one, which can now be found on the streets of Birmingham, Manchester, Sheffield, Glasgow, Cardiff, Edinburgh, and Bristol. The campaign says, "Ideas for a new art world. People across the creative industries need to declare if they have rich parents who helped them get where they are today." Lots of very, very positive comments and some less pleasant comments such as yes, 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 yes. And people need badges that say, "I got here by nepotism." So I just wanted to talk about what I think about this Billboard campaign. My first thought is that it hasn't been thought through very well. So everyone who's had help from their parents has to declare this. To what ends? What's the point? Who is this meant to be helping? Who is this supposed to be serving? I imagine that after they declare it, the only thing that's going to happen is that people are going to be encouraged to take their work less seriously, to look at their art differently and not judge their art on its own merits. And maybe even the person involved will be encouraged to take less pride in their own work. It just doesn't seem like it's coming from a particularly pleasant place, to be perfectly honest. It seems a little bit kind of like a witch hunt, like rub our hands with glee. Let's find these people, no matter how hardworking they are, no matter how talented they are, no matter how passionate they are about art, even if they dedicated their entire life to it. Let's find them and make sure everyone knows that somehow, some way, they deserve less credit for their achievements. The other question I would ask is, what is the qualifying threshold for this financial advantage? Someone having help from their parents, like £1,000, £3,000, £5,000, £10,000. At what point are we allowed to start viewing someone's art differently based on the money that they've been given? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that nepotism is a problem in the art world. And there's no doubt that people that have wealth can be advantaged in all sorts of different industries. But this particular campaign seems to be much more about dragging people down than it does about raising people up, right? If there's a problem with inequality in the art world, surely a more inspirational Billboard campaign would be one that encourages people from impoverished backgrounds to get involved. This Billboard campaign could just as easily say, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, art is for you. It could be something empowering. This doesn't actually serve anyone. If the issue is a lack of equality in the creative industry, and that's the issue that they want to pay attention to, then you solve that issue by bringing people up. You know, it's not obvious that the best way to solve this issue is to find people who could be perfectly honest, decent, well-meaning, lovely, kind, caring, talented, passionate, hardworking, skilled artists, and get them to hold up their hands and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did have some help from my parents when I was 18 or 25," and then to shit all over them as a result of that. Because presumably that's what this is for. I mean, the campaign doesn't specify what the end goal is, but you can imagine that they're not just gonna find out and go, "Oh no, fair enough, don't worry about it." It's clear that the point is something unpleasant. It's something vindictive. So it doesn't really do a huge amount for me. I think it's poorly thought through. As I said, I don't think it's pleasant. But there's slightly more to this. The idea is that if someone has had financial help, that they are definitely more advantaged than someone that hasn't had financial help. That's the implication, right? That's the implication that a lot of people would agree with. It sounds reasonable enough. But it's kind of unhelpful to just focus on one variable. For example, someone may have been helped through art school by their parents, but those same parents may have left them with a load of emotional scars through other forms of, maybe they didn't love them properly when they were growing up, or they had a traumatic childhood experience. And in that way, that person probably has a lot of mental demons to fight through. Do you see what I'm getting at here? People have different situations in their life that have nothing to do with wealth. For example, if someone's trying to forge a career as an artist, and they have depression or bipolar, but they've had help from their parents, they're going to be at a disadvantage compared to someone who doesn't get help from their parents. Maybe they have to work an extra job, but this person is blessed with a positive disposition and good mental health and confidence. They're more likable, perhaps, right? There's loads of different ways that we can be privileged. By only focusing on one variable, we completely dismiss the importance of all the other variables. You have to look at the whole picture. For example, Family relationships, I mentioned that. Natural personality disposition, confidence, self-esteem, the way you were brought up. Were you brought up lovingly? Were you brought up in a kind way where you were encouraged, or were you treated like shit? Because if you're treated like shit as a kid and then your parents throw money at you to get you through art school, the chances are you're probably not at an advantage. Mentally, you're probably at a disadvantage. And a lot of these things are things that money can't buy. What other things are there? What traumatic experiences you may have been through? Attractiveness. Some people have really poor social skills and can't get any friends or loving relationships. These are all factors that, by and large, have nothing to do with wealth, but they can be huge obstacles in people's lives. Huge obstacles in people's lives, which cause setbacks and suffering. They have individual battles to win, mountains to climb. This Billboard campaign could just as easily say, people across the creative industries need to declare if they've never experienced childhood abuse. Because if they've never experienced childhood abuse, that's helped them get where they are today. Or people across the creative industries need to declare that their mental health isn't an absolute nightmare, which has helped them get where they are today. You could focus on any one of these variables and spin a narrative about how people were advantaged or disadvantaged. It would be easy to do. It would be easy to do. Wealth can obviously be a factor, but so can all those other things. There's many wealthy people that you just wouldn't want to swap your position with. Everyone's situation is made up of 1,000 different factors, some of which are disadvantages and some of which are benefits. It's not remotely clear what the points of this campaign would even be. Let's take this into account. Let's pretend that this Billboard campaign becomes a reality. And it won't become a reality because it's ridiculous. There's no end goal. It doesn't make any sense. It's vindictive. It doesn't advantage anyone. It doesn't help impoverished people. But let's just pretend for 1 second that this thing actually happened, and that all people in the creative industries were forced to somehow declare how much financial help they'd had from their parents, as if that's the only thing that matters in the pursuit for excellence, right? Let's say one of these wealthy kids has had a hard life. He suffered, she suffered, overcame obstacles, struggled, loves art, achieved great things in the art world, despite the fact that they had a little bit of help. And then another kid comes from a similar financial background, but has never put that much effort in, is lazy, cruises through life, does the bare minimum to get by, and somehow managed to get into art school, maybe by the help of that person's parents. Once these two people are both forced to declare what help they've received, and it looks similar, the amount of help they've received, they'll look like they're equals. They'll be judged exactly the same, but they're completely different people. One of them deserves the success that they're going to get, and the other one doesn't. But because finance and wealth is the only variable by which we're discussing this, it would look like they're equals. It doesn't make any sense. The world is more complicated than that. Human beings are more complicated than that. The experiences that we go through are more complex than that. From a consumer's perspective, right? I don't know if this is a controversial thing to say, but I would like to view art as art. I would like to judge art on its own merits. As far as I'm concerned, if someone has an easy life, if someone has a healthy personality disposition, if someone cruises through life and they get help from their parents and they're always fucking smiling, it doesn't look like they've ever had a bad day in their life, all the more power to them. If they can create a beautiful painting, I'm happy to look at it. Mozart and Beethoven. One of them came from a very impoverished background, one of them came from a privileged background. How many people know that hundreds of years later? We just want to listen to the fucking music, mate. Is that all right? Can we just listen to the fucking music and stop this attempt? Oh, who has it worse? Who's a bigger victim? It's exhausting. It's everywhere. I'm not saying there's no place for discussions of this kind. But the only point of discussions of this kind should be to raise people up. That's the only point. It's not about dragging people down. You're allowed to be good at art if you come from a wealthy background. You're allowed to be passionate about art if you come from a wealthy background. If you're a wealthy parent and your kid loves art, help the kid go to art school, but maybe you could also donate some money to charities which bring more art to impoverished communities. I don't know. But stop with this nonsense. Stop it. This billboard is no good. It's no good. Anyway, look, I think I've made my point perfectly clear. At the end of the day, there are lots of different ways that people can suffer and lots of obstacles people can overcome. It's not just about whether or not they have help from their parents. And art should be judged for art. And in the meantime, we should do everything we can to make sure that art is accessible to everyone. But if you've spent your time creating this billboard and you're proud that it's out there on the streets, I just want to say, I think you're a bit of a plonker.